Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker, and I'm excited to talk today about a topic that's important to everybody, where we're talking about remote work and team management in this, I'm not even going to call it a new environment because it's not new. And at the same time, we haven't quite gotten it yet. So there's still a number of challenges. So I'm super excited to have Adrian Esquivel with us today. He is the founder and CEO of TechPert, a company that offers a contingent workforce that's built for any digital transformation project. And he started TechPert in 2009 with a vision of providing cutting-edge technology solutions to businesses with a focus on customer service. And he's worked with hundreds of companies and organizations to deliver these digital solutions that have a lasting impact on their mission. And since then, they've earned over 30 industry awards. And he's been working with technology for over 17 years with a goal to help make web-friendly place for businesses. And he's authored The Future of the Workforce Is Now. It's a book that deploys everything about remote work experience, team management, innovation disruptions, and future-proof organizations, which is what we all need to hear and talk about today. So without further ado, Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Penny. Glad to be here.
So I'm excited to talk about this because, I mean, for you, this isn't new, right? You've been working with technology and digitalization. So what changed for you having done this before the pandemic and then coming into the pandemic and now after, let's call it after the pandemic? What were the changes that you saw in this hybrid and remote work environment?
Yeah, sure. So before the pandemic, our company was distributed. We had more of a footprint down here in Miami where we're based. And, a lot of the work that we would do, the services that we provide, our team members that were performing those services were spread out throughout the country. We don't work with US-based talent. That makes up our project teams, and those are the professionals that we staff for our clients. So it wasn't anything when the pandemic came and everybody was working from home. Yeah, freaking out. That's right. And working from home. Yeah, it was nothing new to us. We were already used to working that way. And it was actually, we're actually set up pretty well to provide tech professionals to our clients who needed them. And so during that time, there was a demand for tech workers to be able to help speed up a lot of digital transformation projects with our clients. It was not a big change for us.
But what changed? Because I'm trying to dig right into the meat for people, because the way that you worked maybe didn't change, but there was a change in some shape or form. So having been in the digital space and been remote before, what was the difference for you, or what did you see in the marketplace that was different or changed that remote work from before to during the pandemic, and then what has since changed again, or did nothing change?
Yeah, I've taken it from the perspective of our clients, and which we saw them change, right? And we saw them adopting more of a remote workforce, right? And it was not just about sending their employees home and having them work remotely, but it was also about being able to operate in that kind of environment, right? So being able to track progress and track work was something that changed. And again, these are things that we would always use before the pandemic when we would, manage projects. For example, we would use tools that were online and that would be able to easily manage, progress and deliverables and tasks for people. And that was, how we manage, tech projects. And we saw our customers using those same tools in a non-tech environment, right? To manage their remote workforce was coming online. And then,
so the tracking work is one big area, right?
That's right.
You saw the change. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that, because I think that's a really important point, that people were doing it, as you said, in tech environments, but not as much in other environments. So what do you think was the disruption? Because people don't like to be tracked, right? And so there's a lot of people who are like, you're micromanaging me and this isn't right.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? How do you see your clients dealing with that, having that greater need to track some of this work and maybe some of the pushback that they were getting from people who didn't want to track or be tracked?
So it wasn't so much the tracking side of things. It was more of how do you manage, work, and how do you manage tasks and completion of those tasks and do that through a digital environment, right? And at the same time, you couldn't really walk over to someone's desk in an office or be able to converse with them in person. So being efficient in using online meetings, like video meetings, like Zoom, what we're on, and making sure that you were really efficient in the time that you took to run those meetings so that everybody understood exactly what they were doing and what was expected of them. And it was very important in a team environment where people are collaborating. And so that was something that we saw, right, is efficiency and time management in meetings so that you can make sure that everyone knew what they had to do and they were able to deliver on those tasks. We do time tracking. It's something that we do as part of our service and part of our business. We're always doing that. I didn't necessarily see that change much in some of our clients in their workforce. It was more of just making efficient use of how they manage work and had made sure that they had proper expectations on when things were to be completed and how that was communicated.
Okay, great. My philosophy on meetings is they sucked before the pandemic, they sucked during the pandemic, and they still suck. So meaning that the statistics show that people weren't running meetings effectively, and we really didn't change our meeting culture to improve things a whole lot. What's your thought on that? And what could people do that you've seen that really works to help make those meetings more efficient?
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. So obviously preparation is number one, right? So being prepared before you go into a meeting. Whoever's running the meeting has a clear agenda and have been able to communicate what the purpose of the meeting is before, right? If it's something that is called on demand or if it's something that's regularly scheduled, that's important. And one thing that we do is we have very short meetings, call them stand-up meetings, where, it's kind of going over the day's tasks, what was done the day before and what's going to be, going on that day. So we prepare in advance, right? So again, clear agenda. And again, using our tools to make sure that everything that everyone's going to be working on has already been defined. So those meetings are very short, efficient, and it's more of saying, no, here's what we're doing. Any questions, any input, and we have kind of a brief discussion, and then we go off and do the work.
So it's about alignment around the priorities that that you're working on the tasks that are most important.
That's right. I think sometimes, meetings can go a little longer in our experience when it's creative or collaborative and you're trying to figure something out. That's when those may not be the quickest and shortest, most purposeful meetings. I mean, obviously you're trying to work towards something, but it's not clearly defined how to get there. And so, but I agree with you. Like, I'm not a big meeting person either.
Well, I'm just reflecting what the statistics show, right? When more than 60% of people feel that meetings are a waste of their time, there's something wrong with the way that we're running meetings, right? So, and part of it, I think, is we just try to, like you said, if it's a brainstorming meeting, then use it for brainstorming. But let's not shove everything like status reporting, brainstorming. We try to make a meeting like a one-size-fits-all meeting for everything, and different people need to be at different meetings. So we definitely need, in my opinion, a meeting reboot in most companies just to rethink who should be at these meetings. You could, in some status meetings, you could just use those tools that you were talking about to identify what your priorities are for today, as opposed to everybody getting together and meet and listen to everybody say that.
Yeah. I like meetings to be supportive of getting the job done, not necessarily just being there to create a bunch of more work, right? Without that being the intention of the meeting. That's never good, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like what you just said. The meeting should be in support of getting the work done. So if it's just a status meeting, right, where you're just saying what you're doing, you could probably do that online. But if you want to make sure that people have a way to ask, that you just go around quickly, does anybody have any challenges, right? Like I guess you use the Scrum format, right? Does anybody have any challenges? Then that's a way to support them getting their work done. Otherwise, you can leave out sort of the pieces that don't add that. So that's a really poignant point there.
Yeah, I know. And that's where my background is, and that's where, we're in the tech space, and running kind of that Scrum format is something we feel comfortable with in running that style in our non-tech software development project meetings.
So what else do you feel is critical for managing people in a hybrid work environment?
Well, I think we always
even just fully off-site, right? Either hybrid or fully digital.
Yeah, good management, right? People
Elaborate, please.
management,
That's
project
very
management,
broad, right?
yeah, no, I know, but it's one of those things where, you want to make sure that you are properly executing on work and you're making sure that you have your set clear deliverables and, time to complete them and the tasks that are needed to complete it and that you are communicating throughout the whole process. So, someone's got to be in charge of that, right? And be able to do that.
Do you think that managers should, let me ask you this then to get clarity on what you're saying. Do you think that managers should function more like project managers so that the multiple projects that are going on underneath their umbrella, that they should almost manage it like a project management office where they're managing multiple projects?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. I agree with that. You are managing projects. I mean, as a manager, that's what you're doing, right? You're just not sitting at a desk somewhere, just being, holding a title, right? So you do have projects and you have people responsible, under you that you're responsible for. And ultimately you're responsible for their work and making sure that they're doing it, right? So you and everyone is working on, has their own responsibilities, but ultimately there are projects that you are working on in addition to the daily responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. So what would somebody do differently? Because you said be a better manager. What would somebody do differently if they approached their management work as though they were managing a bunch of projects versus managing, let's say, a bunch of people or a bunch of...
Yeah. Organization, right? Being organized is like the most, I've seen a bunch of disorganized managers, right? And so I know what that looks like. So being organized and...
What's the way to get organized?
Well, so it's different for everybody, right? And so there's a bunch of different methods and process for people, and everyone kind of adopts their own way of what works for them to be organized, right?
What works for you?
Yeah, what works for you, right? So, I mean...
No, but I'm asking you what works for you, because I want...
Oh, for me, okay.
I want to give people something concrete, right?
Yeah,
because otherwise we're just saying, hey, be a better manager and get organized. Yay! That's just, we want to really give them some, what tools do you use? How do you turn chaos into organization?
Yeah. So high level, we use project management tools and methodologies and processes can get very complex. And there's Gantt charts and all this stuff that you can do with that. But, to kind of simplify it, right? What I do, right, is I have a checklist, very simple checklists. Mm-hmm. Like I use OneNote, for example, right?
Okay.
Checklists that are, organized by priority and time when they have to be done by. And very simple. Every day I have a checklist, so I kind of organize my tasks for the day. But even then, I still know that my task list is ever growing and infinite, right? I mean, that's just, so for me, I have to be able to prioritize and manage, when I do things, right? And I have to give priority to them because I can't do everything at once either. So kind of simplifying it into a simple checklist and organizing it by priority and time when I have to complete it works very well for me.
How do you manage, there's those things that you have to do. So, that's your checklist, but then there's the checklist for each project, right? Yeah. The milestones that you're managing, because you wear lots of different hats, right? And those people are remote. How do you best stay on top of other people's task lists and the milestones that need to be done?
Yeah, that's where the software tools come in, right? So we have 2 different systems that we use for that are web-based. Everyone has access to them. They're assigned to different projects. In there, they have their task lists and their due dates and milestones, and it's organized there by project and even by categories. So that's how we kind of distribute that, right? Or manage that distributed team, is that we use those web-based software tools to do that. So sometimes I kind of look at that, and then maybe one of the things on my checklist is to, for me to personally check up on something that's already exists in those systems, but I have my own checklist to keep me in check, right? So that's more collaborative than...
Right. Don't a lot of those systems, like, I don't know which one you use, but like Basecamp or what's it called?
There's Monday. A lot of people use Monday.
That's what I was thinking of.
Asana,
Monday.
Yeah. So
Asana.
Yeah. So we use Basecamp. We've used it for forever. I mean, we use that overall for our projects. And then we have another tool that we use in that Atlassian product called Jira. And that's really for our software projects. And a lot of our talent that's on projects, they'll use that. It's somewhat of used by a lot of tech teams and development teams.
And don't those tools also give you an overview as people complete things? You see whether something is yellow, whether something is green. Like they're really very visual
Yeah.
so that you can just get a quick overview of all of your projects that you're working on, or all the projects that someone on your team is working on, and a place for them to put in whatever challenges or whatever updates, right? So it's like a really easy way for everybody to have a quick view of what's going on in the project.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
right?
right. That's right. So you can see it obviously the individual level where you see what's associated to you, assigned to you. Then you have managers that can see the project as a whole and everybody that's working on that project. And then you can have administrators, or depending on your structure, that can see everything. One point I'll make about that, is communications. Earlier point I was making is, we try to declutter the inbox as much as possible. So we have our own internal instant communication tool called Slack, which I'm sure you're aware of, and most your listeners are as well. And so we integrate hooks into that. So we make use of channels and messaging so that we're making sure that notifications being passed through when tasks are completed or assigned or revised. So we try to leverage that more than sending a bunch of emails. Try to limit emails as much as possible, but they are avoidable. But
So let's make this our last topic that we talk about. So emails versus messaging. So the pandemic, right? A lot of people freaking out. They brought all these new platforms in. They brought Slack, and they use WhatsApp, and they use Skype, and right, and they use Teams. And so now there's multiple platforms of messaging communication. People still text each other. They have emails. Moving it from email to messaging actually in some ways makes it even more complicated, that I've got to follow 10 channels versus one inbox. So how do you handle that? I feel, and I've heard from a number of people, that in itself has created a great deal of stress in the hybrid environment.
So when it comes to internal communications within the company, we rely on Slack, right? When you're in client services, for example, and you're interfacing with clients, they're not going to be on your internal Slack channel, even though you could give them access to that. It's not something process-wise that we do. Obviously that communication stays within email, right? So my team, obviously you check your emails throughout the day, but you're not glued to the email. You're not working out of your inbox, right? So, and again, depending on the profession you're in, it's unavoidable. You're going to be working out of your inbox. But, internal communications, we like to keep it in there as much as possible. There's no reason to text if we have that, right? It's on your app. You're in front of the workstation. That's where you're communicating. And phone calls, when you need to speak with someone and you obviously can't get across what you need to in an internal messaging tool like Slack, then that's when you would use that internally. So we keep as much of productivity communications in Slack and limit it and almost eliminate it when it comes to emails.
Okay, so you haven't experienced that, where people feel overwhelmed by too many channels and too much chat, and that they don't actually get to their work because they're constantly being chatted up?
No. Oh, well, we have our own internal.
A lot of people feel that way. That's all.
Yeah, no, we have some internal channels that are like, we have like a channel for family chat, sports, like, just personal interests that we have set up in there. But no, I don't think that we don't find that people are spending time in there just chatting. No, our people are, pretty busy and very purposeful in their duties. So
good. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is that people can balance that while they're working from home or wherever they are, that they can really stay focused and stay purposeful, or even in the office, right? When there's so many different communication channels and so many different things vying for their attention, how do they block out the noise and give specific times that they're going to go in to engage in a chat or things like that? So
yeah, and I think working from home presents another set of challenges when it comes to focusing and making sure that you're separating home and work. Probably a whole other podcast we can talk about that sort of thing. But once they're focused on work and the communication is really driven around getting that work done.
All right, awesome. Anything that I didn't ask that you feel that you want to share with the audience?
I think our approach comes from being a tech company and having and kind of born into these things, right? Like our team, if even people that didn't come from the tech world that joined our company, they quickly adapted to how we operate, which came from managing software projects and being remote and being distributed and all pre-pandemic. So our way is I think it's not unique because there's other companies that operate similarly, but it really came from that. And someone that's not coming from that area, I think there's a lot of examples in how tech is used at a company to help add efficiency, to help with productivity. And I think you should embrace that because it will add efficiency to your own process in whatever business you're running. If you're running a bake shop, right? Retail store, just utilizing these tools and these way of operating and being productive and efficient, utilizing tech tools, I think will help any business owner and any business, big or small.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And just one last question before we sign off. I ask everybody this question. So what's your definition of productivity and why?
My definition of productivity, having free time, right? So that's how I measure it. So more free time I have, the more productive I've been, right?
Okay, good. I like that. Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being here. What's a great place for people to reach you at?
Yeah, so our website, so that's techpert.com. That's TECKPERT.com. And as you mentioned in the beginning, we provide tech consulting services. So we do assessments, and then we also do implementation services, which include staff augmentation and project delivery in the IT space. So anyone interested to learn about that, they can go to our website. We also have, as you mentioned, a book that I published on the future of the workforce. And we also have really good content on there. We publish a lot of content on workforce, on digital transformation, and anybody interested in those topics, they could find us there on our website.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Penny.
And thank you all for being here. I think the key for you to think about of what I took away from today is that how you work together as a team does change when you're at home versus when you're in the office. And a big part of that, of what Adrian talked about, is communication, and those tracking tools are important. It's important for you to get an overview. There's less of those kinds of conversations. And really, by having the right tracking tools, you can reduce the number of meetings and the wasted time that happens in those meetings. So really embrace those tools that are available for you that help groups to collaborate digitally. And meetings are still a major issue. So step back and reset your meeting culture in this hybrid work environment. And as a manager, it's your job. It's your job to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So that's what Adrian was saying too. We have to be better managers, and we have to be even better when people are remote. So thank you all for being here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. See you then. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.